Hello and welcome to Kerbal Space Program. I am your host, Christopher Tarantola, and we are reaching for the stars. In this episode, we are going to build and launch some satellites to get some biome data for Kerbin, Minimus, and the Moon. Now, we can do this with one satellite, or we can just build three and send them each. And I haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet, so we'll do that live. Right, so instead of going through all the blabbling that I ended up doing, I decided to just let you fast forward to this part. I don't think y'all need to see me or listen to me agonize over every little detail of building this. This is pretty normative at this point by now. I try a couple things out, but in the end, it's going to be pretty much like any other probe that I've built. So I hope you enjoy the build process, and I'll see you on the launch pad. Hello and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, our fellow Kerbonauts. We are reaching for the stars, and in this episode, we are launching a little ComSat satellite. Um, Wrong one. That one. Yeah, because we have a couple contracts here to position satellite in a specific orbit of the moon and a specific orbit of Kerbin. And we need to have a mystery goo, which we do as indicated by the green, a materials bay, which we do as indicated by the green, and a thermometer on the satellite, which of course we do as indicated by the green. So we just need to reach the designated polar orbit and the designated orbit around the moon, and we will get these contracts. I've done like 9, 10 of these, but again, those are part of the lost episodes, and so therefore we're gonna do it again. And this time I'm just gonna tutorialize it for you. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to just get into orbit, um, but y'all have done that before. But that's just for a regular 80,000 kilometer orbit. One of the things we want to do is go to map view and check out where exactly do we need to take these. So the first orbit around Kerbin, and not necessarily the first one that we'll go to, but first orbit is right here. And you notice it doesn't just have a it has a direction that it wants you to go, and it has an inclination that you need to match. And so this satellite right here, even though it's in a polar orbit, even if I put it up to the correct apoapsis and perapsis, um, because its inclination it does not match this one's, um, that would not be a successful contract. So that's one of the things you have to take into account with polar orbits and really any orbit. Okay, so we're also going to go to the moon here, zoom in, and focus view on the moon, and we'll zoom in enough. And here, this is the orbit that we have to make for the moon. It's not equatorial, but it's not too bad. About what, a 30-degree inclination or so. And so what we're going to do is first I'm going to just do a regular orbit. Then I'm going to come out to the moon. And when I come out to the moon, one of the things I want to make sure I do is I have an intersection with this orbit. And I want to come out to the moon coming around this way. That would be ideal because of the way that this orbit is. If this orbit was going around this way, then I would want to come in around this way. And when I come in, I want to have an intersection with this orbit. And then at that intersection, I will create another maneuver node and do one maneuver to get the contract. So for any given uh, orbit that you're trying to match with these satellites, once you get inside the sphere of influence, you should only need one, uh, one or two burns at most to match that orbit. So the first one would be to make sure that you have an intersect if you don't already, and the second one would be to actually match the orbit. And really what that does is it takes a little bit more time finagling with the maneuver nodes. So let's go ahead and get to it. I'm going to fast forward through that part and this part of it, and I'll see you guys up in space. That was a bit anticlimactic. Let's try that again. Our frame rate went a little bit low there with that explosion, which was actually quite cool. And we can get all these pretty sparkles now. So one of the things about this orbit is I never reduced the thrust ratio of those solid rocket boosters, and so now we went way too fast. And so we're fighting the atmosphere now, as you can see with all the atmospheric effects that are going on. And our apoapsis is really high. So, and we have a really sharp angle. Usually I have halfway across the planet before I'm up at this kind of apoapsis. But that's the nature of the kind of thing. So this is not the most efficient burn. But I'm going to go ahead and talk through it to show that, you don't have to have a perfect ascent angle like I always do. You can do it like this, right? It's a little bit more dirty. It's a little bit less efficient, but honestly, it's not that big a deal, guys. It's not the end of the world. And I'm gonna reduce, and I'm just gonna leave my per apsis. I'm not even gonna really keep it that circular, right? So I got a high of 95 and a low of 73. That's a pretty that would be easy. This kind of an orbit would be easy to achieve without the help of all these um, telemetry data. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to keep on my prograde until I'm out of the atmosphere. I'm at 63 now, so I'm actually pretty close to out of the atmosphere. I'm going to go back to map view here, and as soon as I get to about right about now, 68, I'll go ahead and I'll start moving to adjust my attitude. Right, and so now that I adjust my attitude, once I'm in space, which is now, I'm going to go ahead and make my fairing go, and I'll press B because I key binded my photovoltaics to brakes. I'll extend that for cosplay reasons, and then I'll keep an eye on my time here, which is getting very close. And so I have a 16,000 burn instead of a 200 burn at apoapsis, and that's because, quite frankly, I'm going to start early since I have such a large burn. I'm going to start early. I'm going to burn on the horizon early. That's going to raise my apoapsis up until I get there, but that's okay. Actually, I'm burning down a little bit, so it's lowering it down. But the point of it is, I'm not doing exactly. I'm kind of doing this fly-by-the-wire eyeballing stuff, and if you didn't have the benefit of having all this telemetry because you didn't install, the engineer would do, it's not a big deal. We can still make this happen. It's just going to be a little bit more dirty. So we're just going to make this burn. We burn for another 48 seconds. That's still going to, the stage is going to have plenty of fuel to make that happen. I'm using a procedural part here to have just one long, large tank instead of having two tanks. And I love that. It makes it more stable. It's a cleaner look, and it just feels more like a rocket. Now, while we're doing this burn, one of the things I'll point out is I have my materials bay here, but I have it on a decoupler. So that's why I'm going to the moon first, because that's the one that requires the materials bay. And after I hit the one on the moon, I can decouple this and I'll have that much more delta V to do anything else I want to do with the satellite. That's just a little trick that I use. If I was trying to actually get science, and I also wanted to like have anything that I didn't need for later contracts, I would throw everything that I needed for the early contracts on here so that I had it, and then once I fulfilled those contracts, if I didn't need them for the later contracts, then I would decouple it and leave that other stuff on there. And that's a good way to get a little bit more delta V out of your rocket. So I'm approaching my thing, and you notice I'm just going to go by what's going on here. I just need to get that above 70. And look, 108 and 75. That's not even close to what we had planned. We look at our actual orbit compared to our planned orbit, and they are completely different. And by completely different, I mean a little bit. It goes a little bit out further here. No big deal. No big deal at all, guys. Okay? 100 is actually still considered low Earth orbit or low Kerbal orbit. So we're still doing fine, okay? And we're just shooting for the moon anyway. So we're going to set that as target. And we're going to double click on, to go to the moon, we're going to double click on Kerbal to focus on Kerbal. And then we are going to go to where the moon is just on the horizon here. And then we're going to go directly down and make a maneuver right there. All right, now you could also put the moon at 90 degrees and move this over to about right here, and that's a perfectly other legitimate way to figure out where to put that maneuver. Okay, so now we just burn prograde out to the orbit of the moon till we get a capture, and there we go, and then we can focus on the moon. You can do that manually. I just have that nice nifty button, so I'm going to use it. And so we want to fine tune this to where instead of coming around this way, and we know which way we're coming because it'll give us our moon escape. So that's the tail end. That's where we enter orbit around the moon, and that's where we exit orbit around the moon, or the sphere of influence, I should say. So we don't want to come around this way. We want to come around that way, and we want this line to intersect this orbit here, right? So we're going to go to our maneuver here, and yeah, I still got 5 minutes, so I can play with this. We're going to just adjust until it makes sense. And there we go. And I can also, if I wanted to try, I could maybe play with the normal and anti-normal. If you're not on the nodes, that's not going to work as well for you as you'd like. So I'm just going to leave it, and it's no big deal. Because I'm going to come around, and as long as I have an intersection, so I need an intersection either here or there, one of the two. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually on the outside here, so I am going to click my way to this intersection. And you also don't want to run into the planet. That would be bad. Okay, so that's not working for me. So one of the things I might try and do is go radial. I'm actually right clicking to go negative here. And just going to try and see if I can't get an intersect here. And it looks like it's actually going to be kind of difficult without adjusting our normal and anti-normal, which is a fine. So we're going to get this capture here. We are at least going in the right direction. And actually, one thing I'm going to try and go ahead and pushing this out to where I'm going to push it out one more. Yeah. And see, we're not intersecting right now. And so this isn't going to work as is, but what we can do is we can burn right about, I'd say here, add maneuver. And we can lift this sucker up. at that point until we do have an intersect here. And we're getting pretty close. And so we go to the node 2 here and get up by 1 at a time. And looks like we're getting close here, so I'm going to... That looks pretty much there, right? There's not an angle. It's kind of hard to know for sure with the way these... We're basically looking at a hologram, right? Where a 2D projection of a 3D space. So it can be difficult, but there's at no point do I see space between this line and that line. And so I'm pretty sure right there is our intersection. And then at that intersection, we'll go ahead and match that orbit. Okay, so we got to do 2 burns to intersect because we're outside the sphere of influence. Once you get inside the sphere of influence, I'm only going to need 1 burn to make that happen. But I needed 2 burns to make it happen outside. And that's fine. Okay, so we got 3 minutes to go. I'm going to go ahead and adjust my attitude first. My attitude is adjusted and not anymore because I went too far too fast. No big deal. One way you could stop that is by doing time warp like that, and that'll stop your rotation automatically. Unless you have mods that can, there are mods that can do persistent rotation, and the persistent rotation mod, I don't know if that's the precise name, but you type in persistent rotation, you'll find it in Google or Curse or whatever. And but anyway, if you do that, what you get is you'll keep on rotating even when you do turn time warp on, and that can be helpful if you want to do like really long burns, particularly like when we have the outer solar system or the outer planets mod. And let's say we have one of those little electric motors on there, and we want to burn that sucker for 20 minutes straight. Well, instead of having to wait 20 minutes to burn it, or maybe it's only 5 minutes because you have 4 times acceleration when you press Alt and then accelerate. But even with that, it takes 5 whole minutes. Well, with the persistent rotation mod, now you can fast forward just like you do in any other mode, and it'll continue to go. And it'll continue to rotate in any other physics that are happening to it. It won't just click on rails. And that introduces problems, but it also provides opportunities like that. And that's why you would want that. It also will allow you to do recreation projects like the Juno orbiter. The Juno orbiter rotates in order to stabilize its attitude, and the whole spacecraft orbits, or rotates rather, and the instruments are designed to where each instrument gets so much time as it orbits. And so that's another thing. Oh, I've totally passed my maneuver talking to you guys. Oh, and I'm still time accelerating too. Oh my god, what a doofus. See if I can make it happen anyway. Yeah, I know I'm an idiot, guys. I can't help it. If I'm making this many mistakes and I'm trying to teach you guys, hopefully that makes you feel a little bit better about your program, right? Because y'all can't be as bad as me, right? Y'all have never made one of these mistakes, have you? Nah. Nobody's ever made a mistake like what I'm making right now. Nobody's ever time warped way past because of their impatience or their inattentiveness. And I think that is our stage, so we need a stage. The reason I'm staying on the map view is I want to see where my intercept is, particularly since we went past our our launch by like 80 seconds. Okay. Cool beans here. We are still getting our intersect. And wonder if we're actually able to intersect over here. We will. We won't even have to do this second one at all, which is perfectly fine. I mean, this is actually a better burn than I had originally planned, ironically enough, because now we already have our intersect. I don't have to do that second burn. I don't know about more efficient, but certainly I think a little bit easier. So I think I can tap a little bit more. And so now we have an intersect. And so what we can do now is F5 this and try and do a maneuver right at that intersect. And so this will be our one maneuver. So I did I did four maneuvers total, right? One maneuver to get out of the atmosphere, another maneuver to get into orbit, a third maneuver to get captured and get captured by the moon's sphere of influence and intersect the orbit that I'm looking for. I might have had to do a fourth one to get that intersect, but I didn't, it turns out. And then a fifth one, I'm sorry, a fourth one, in this case, to actually get the orbit. And so what we got to do? Well, we are coming in at a pretty acute angle here. So first of all, we're going to need to burn this way and this way quite a bit. And we're also going to need to burn this way quite a bit. And what you'll notice as we mess with these toggles is they will start acting differently than they normally do. Once you've gone so far, and we're starting to approach that, the normal and anti-normal might start acting like prograde and retrograde, and the retrograde prograde will start acting like normal and anti-normal. The reason for, or I'm sorry, radial and anti-radial is what I was pointing to while I was saying normal and anti-normal. This is anti-normal and that's normal. This is anti-radial and radial. But in any case, you're just trying to match, and you just gotta play with these until it does. So yeah, we want to do that, and we want to do this. And that's looking pretty good, right? So now we're getting pretty close, and we're going in the wrong direction now. We're gonna do it that way, and it looks like we need to go maybe prograde a little bit, yeah, and maybe radial a little bit, yeah, and retrograde a little bit, and make sure it's still. See, when you pull one, it's going to affect the other two. And so you do got to keep playing with it. Even if you've matched the radio at one point, you might have to match it again. And see, I'm going in the wrong direction. So I need to pull that back. And maybe pull this back a little bit. And pull this. Nope, wrong direction. What I'm trying to do is get that paralysis on this paralysis to match up. And I should be able to do that because that would indicate that I'm actually matching the orbits. Oh, that's pretty close right there. That actually, at this point, is close enough that I'd get the contract. But I'm going to get it a little bit better. Right. So F5 this, and see, look, I'm burning 336 negative for prograde. I'm burning 137 positive for normal, and I'm burning 165 negative for radial. But that does not, it's not like you just add 1, 3, 4, 500, 600. It's not 630 some odd meters per second delta V, it's only 400 because some of this combines with some of that, combines with some of this, and how it works exactly, you got to do the math. Computer does the math for us, but the point being is burning one helps the other, and so it makes it more efficient this way. Now, if you just burnt one at a time, it would add up to 650 delta V. So you can see that by doing it in one go round, we are literally saving about 220, 230 delta V. That doesn't matter because we have plenty of delta V, but it might matter. And if you're doing, 6 of these contracts on one satellite, it can actually matter quite a bit. You'll get that many more satellite contracts with one satellite. So that is how you do that. Let's go ahead and correct our attitude. F5 again. We got a day, and we'll time warp to that. And here it comes. Bam. We've just entered the sphere of influence. And we're going to time warp some more. Oh, going a little bit too quick here. All right. Could go ahead and F5 this at 12 minutes out, and ought to give us time to adjust if we need it to. It's going to be a 16-second burn. Oh, and time warp down. 13 seconds left to go. I'll leave it alone there. One thing you can do, if you don't like all these orange things and you got the same mod, you can just click that button and it goes away. And I will do that. Okay, I'm going to adjust my attitude a little bit. Keep an eye on my clock. 3, 2, 1, 0, burn. Okay. So now we just follow the maneuver, and we should get the contract at the end of this maneuver plus 10 seconds. Alright, see how it's coming right into that, right where we wanted it. And we're going to chase our maneuver node a little bit. And let's chase it just a little bit more with this, the shift key. Oh, and I went too far, but that's okay. So we are there. And now we just wait that 10 seconds. And we got the contract. Position a satellite in a specific orbit of the moon. You have successfully deployed our satellite in orbit of the moon. Completion rewards 107, 21, and 16. Done. All right. Congratulations, guys. You just got your first satellite in orbit. Now, this is like my, I don't know, 11th, 12th, or something like that. But point being, you now know how to do it. Why is my game frozen? Okay, there we go. My game froze there for a second. Okay, so the point is, you know how to do it. First, you get into orbit. If you're going around, it doesn't matter. First, wherever you are, once you get your sphere of influence intercept, you want to try and get that intersection. If you can't do it with the capture, the sphere of influence capture, you can do it on a second burn at the node or close to the node, and get that intersection. Once you have that intersection, then all you got to do is do one, do put a maneuver node there, add maneuver, finagle with the maneuver nodes until you get it lined up nice and perfect, and then you perform the maneuver and done. That's the most efficient way to do it. I am going to go ahead and figure out getting out of orbit here. So I'm going around this way, so I want to burn this way to go back inside of Kerbal. I'm going to go ahead and do that here. Add burn and click it there. And then I'm going to go ahead and focus on Kerbal. And the reason I want to do that is now, focused on Kerbal, it shows me where my orbit is that I want to get to. And so I want this guy to intersect the green guy, right? And quite frankly, it doesn't even matter that I'm not even close to in the right inclination. Not even close, and that's okay. As long as you have enough delta V, it doesn't matter. If you don't have enough delta V, it matters very much so. But I only have this one other contract to get, and so what I want to try and do is intersecting. It looks like I'm actually pretty close to intersecting as it is. I'm a little bit outside the orbit, so if I increase my burn up too much, that's an intersect right there. And so at this intersect now, we'll be able to do another burn. First, let's pull this maneuver, and then I'll set that maneuver up. So only an 87 second, or 87 meters per second rather, burn. F5. I'm not even going to look at my thing, even though it would be more interesting for you guys. Sorry, but I'm just going to keep an eye on my time warp over here. 3 hours as it goes around to the maneuver node. Alright, down to 5 minutes, so I'm going to slow it down to 100 times. Alright, well, just pass it up. I want to hit that as quick as I can. I don't think that'll be too bad, but we may not get that intersect exactly where we want it, and so we might have to do some adjustments. I'm just press shift and doing a slow walk in now. It actually looks like we're going to get pretty close, and close enough. We're going to F5 this, and then we're going to do a maneuver right there. Add maneuver. And you know, I might not be exactly intersecting it, but you know, the game gives you some leeway on how precise you have to be to get these orbits. And so as long as you get it close with the eyeball, that's going to be close enough for the contract. So, you know, you don't have to worry about, okay, is it, you know, 5 kilometers off? Nobody's going to care. That's just too much. So we're going to be coming in this direction, and we want to basically take a left turn and go up. So we're going to want to burn this way quite a bit. And we're also going to want to burn retrograde, I think, a little bit. And that way some more. And retrograde. And that way some more. And retrograde. And we're going to burn this way some more. And some more retrograde. And what you see now is my retrograde and prograde are going to act more like my normal and anti-normal. See how it's adjusting my inclination quite a bit when I do those? But now watch. When I adjust my normal and anti-normal, that's going to act like my prograde and retrograde. And the reason is, if you look at the orbit that I'm still on, that would be retrograde and prograde. And so when I do that, it actually acts that way because that's just the way the game works. So, you know, we're getting pretty close just now. But now I'm treating my prograde and retrograde as my normal and anti-normal. And I'm treating the normals as prograde and retrograde. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use the third one now to adjust it appropriately. Not quite there. Not quite there. That's better. That's about as close as you'll ever get, right? And, you know, I think our inclination might be off by just like some fraction of a degree, but that's fine. So we're going to F5 that. And so what I do, I did one burn to get out of Kerbin, and I made sure that it intersected with the orbit that I wanted. And then I'm going to do one burn to match the orbit once I get to that intersection. So we just go to our attitude, F5 it one more time, just for safety standards, and fast forward. Uh-oh, we went past now. Normally, it's no big deal when you pass it, depending on which thing you're doing, but it matters quite a bit. Because if you notice, I'm here now. And if I try and do this burn, it doesn't matter how close I am to that maneuver node, I am never, ever going to get it. Because I am in the wrong location. I have to be at the intersect for that to work. If I try and do this turn now, I'm going to be off by so many degrees. And there's nothing I can do about that except function F9, which I will do now. And that's why you quick save. So, now, if you do it and you don't have the quick save, it's not the end of the world, it's just much more difficult. And so what you're going to have to do is you're just going to have to wait until you go around another pass. That's probably your best bet. Or you could go ahead, do the burn, and then do a second burn at the nodes. That's one way to do it. If you just can't go backwards in time because your quick save is not where you need it to be, you forgot to quick save. Fortunately, I did not forget, and so I'm just going to do it right the first time. So it doesn't mean that your mission is over necessarily. It could, because it could have totally killed your Delta V, and you might not have enough Delta V to recover from it. And if that's the case, then you just have to wait till you go back around another time. And if you can't do that for one reason or another, because your resources are low and you got Kerbals in there and you got some life support mod that's telling you, hey, these Kerbals only have so much time, then I don't know what to tell you guys. I mean, at that point, you have failed your mission, and if you can't go back to a quick save, then uh, man, I don't know. I don't even know what to tell you, man. That's a mission failed. You don't have enough time. A quick save. You don't have the Delta V. Then yeah, game over, man. Game over. We're screwed, man. We're screwed. All right. About 10 seconds out. T minus 10 seconds. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Burn. And we're gonna burn for 30 seconds here. We use quite a bit of Delta V, but we have the Delta V to use, so that's not a big deal. I'm just gonna slowly walk in the last 25 meters per second here. does pay to be precise in these kinds of maneuvers. All right, and now we just got to wait our 10 seconds. Maintain stability for 10 seconds. And bam, we get it. And there we go. Done. So that, my friends, is how you do the uh, satellite in a specific orbit contracts. I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, please subscribe and like, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.